Fred from ATP Seafood. How's the store going?
Hey mate, yeah, good buddy.
Fresh Coffin Bay Pacific oysters from ATP Seafood. Take home.
For the next 15 minutes, it's the time to learn, if you haven't learned before, how to shuck oysters. And with me I have Brad from ATP Seafood.
I'm just here this Savo to show you how a couple of ways that we shuck our oysters. Best practices to be safe while you're doing it. So if you're a left-hander, I'm a left-hander. Whatever I do, just do the opposite. So,
Note that first, probably the most
I've
important
never shucked
bit.
an oyster right-handed, but you probably wouldn't like to see me try either. So you hold the oyster from the hinge. This is the hinge end. So you sort of try and hold the oyster. This is just one way we shuck them. Hold the oyster from the hinge end. Get your oyster knife, and sort of there's a top part of the oyster. It's called the lid, and then there's a bottom part of the oyster. You sort of want to get the knife just in between them two where they meet, and then you'll see it sort of start to open a bit, and then you sort of just twist it, and then under the lid there's a hinge called the ductor muscle. There's a muscle under there called the ductor muscle. So you want to be able to just cut that with the knife and then pull the lid off. So that's your ductor muscle there.
Adductor muscle?
Yeah.
Just like we have an adductor muscle, it's like the one that brings things...
Yep, I think
shut?
So. I think so. So that's your ductor muscle there. And then, so you want to cut that, and then that's your oyster. So you've got your oyster there, like that. And what we do at our shops, we sort of turn the oyster to ensure that there's, just ensure it's, our standard. So we sort of cut the other end of the ductor muscle, which is at the bottom. We sort of cut that, and then flip the oyster and turn it, and then you got your oyster.
Wow.
So,
you made that look so simple. I mean, if you're doing that for the first time, what are the common mistakes people make?
So yeah, you can quite easily slip and cut yourself, or so the good practices to have is the right tooling. We do supply oyster knives. These are our oyster knives, but I've customised this one a bit. I've sharpened it up a bit just so we can get into the oyster correctly. So yeah, it's really important that you get the knife in between the two sections of the oyster. Otherwise, you can quite easily slip, stab yourself, or that's the most thing. That's probably the worst thing you'll do is stab yourself. So you want to stay clear of that. So I'll shuck another one for you if you like.
Because if you went too much on an angle as well, even if you got through, you'd stab into the oyster.
Yes, yeah, you can. If you're a quick shucker, you got to be careful not to stab the actual meat of the oyster. So if you go too far, you'll go in and you'll stab the oyster. But when we shuck oysters, we're quite cautious because we're selling to the public. So we want to keep our knife clear of the oyster and make sure that it's not harmed or damaged in any way to get our premium product across to our customers the best we can.
If you don't have an oyster knife, can you get away with using a little paring knife, or not really?
Butter knives are good, but just be careful because they're blunt. You can't sort of get into the. As you can see, the oyster's got lots of different jagged edges and stuff. So butter knife, you're not going to be able to get in there the best.
So you almost need
can use a butter knife.
Use a paring knife to just sort of jammy it a little bit, and then get in with a butter knife.
That'll work. Yep, that'll work. So I'll shuck another one for you. So once again, get your hinge, and then just turn your blade, crack the lid.
So your knife goes all the way in there, so
yeah,
that's obviously...
I've kept it above the oyster.
Yes.
So you can keep your knife above the oyster, cut your ductor muscle, pull your lid off, and there's your oyster. Yeah. So I didn't touch it, which is good. And then we just cut the bottom part of the ductor muscle and then turn it over. There's your oyster.
Beautiful. And that's how you'd present it if you were...
That's how we present it to
the public, or...
that's how we present it to the public, yes. Yeah. So our home delivery customers receive an oyster like that.
Turned over
like that. And we've got two different, we grade them, and we have 3 different sets of eyes to look over every single oyster to ensure that it's the proper quality and meets ATP standard that we supply. So
Beautiful.
that oyster there, that liquid that came out was its natural. When an oyster's harvested, a farmer shakes the oyster basket, and that stimulates the oyster to close up, and that liquid that came out then, it's this natural water from Coffin Bay that is transported from Coffin Bay. So that oyster, that just shows you how fresh.
So it's marinated in seawater ultimately
the whole way,
until
yeah.
it's
So it's sitting in its own juices for till it gets
fantastic.
here. So
So
if you crack an oyster and nothing comes out, that's a good sign it's slowly dying. But if you see that the juices come out of it, that's just natural water that it's got when it closes up on harvest. So it's good to see that.
and
Yeah.
you should be able to taste the ocean around it.
Yeah, well, it's all natural flavours. So when we shuck an oyster and you see there's that juice is in there, you can sort of wash the oyster with those natural juices and flavour it. So you keep the juices in there, and then you cut it, and then you'll see it all come out. That's all the natural juices from Coffin Bay or its harvest location, and then that's a clean oyster.
Beautiful.
So
That's fantastic, Brad.